Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to see if the clipping problem on the microphone is taken care of. I'm going to turn it down a little bit further. How about that? Okay. Hopefully that takes care of the clipping problems we were having with the first two videos. Went back and listened today to what I had done and noticed there was a lot of clipping. So hopefully this will be a little bit better. Talk a little bit quieter also. So before we get started with this next bag, I'm going to lay down my paper towels. Gives a nice little background for the camera, especially when we're working with the black parts. Alright, in the last videos we've done the shocks and we've done the diffs. We did our large center diff. We did our front diff, which you saw in the video of me building. There's the F on it. And then after I stopped the video, I did a rear diff, which is marked with an R, and they're identical. That's why I didn't bother y'all with recording the second one, because there was no sense. All right, let's move along. So our next video that we're doing now is going to start with the front end, which you see in the bottom left hand corner, which is going to be bag C. Let's get started. So we're going to open up bag C, which is our front end components. We've got a set of arms, which I have an add-on to those arms, something that I do because I like a little bit stiffer arm in the front of my car. So Mayako has carbon fiber inserts for the underside of the arms. Our inserts on these arms are on the underside of the arm, not the top. So I'm going to be putting carbon fiber on there. Those plastic ones are going to come off. I'll run the plastics on the rear. Alright, we have our diff case, our gearbox, and then we got some bags of some goodies here. We've got our bag here that has some, like some, those hinge pins? No, those are through bolts for the diff. Oh no, I think I got screw-on hinge pins here also. So my prototype buggy started off with normal in-the-pill hinge pins. Realized after testing that a through-bolt style would do better. So we went to a open block A and B with an open pill that runs through, and we ended up going with the hinge pins as a bolt all the way through with the nut on the other side. So pretty interesting, really stable. They hold up so much better than the normal pins. We'll open up this bag here. And of course I'm spreading everything out so I can explain what everything is and what goes on there. Alright, so of course out of that first bag we've got our gear that goes through the gear case to the spider gear for the diff. We've got our cup. We've got both of our bearings that go onto our gear where it goes through. Then we have our hinge blocks. Got our A and our B block. This kit comes with carbon fiber inserts. Remember I've told you guys before that you can raise and lower your diffs. And we've got some pieces here to make that happen. You can make your diffs a little higher, you make your diffs a little lower. You can do that by using the blocks, or you can use spacers. So you can adjust your arms back down using your blocks if you raise your diff up. So you've got adjustability to move your arms up and down, and you've got the ability to raise your diff up and down, separate from your blocks. Alright, so like I said, these pills are through pills. So there's a hole that goes all the way through. You can see the white grip towel through there. So these go all the way through. And they gave enough here to set up whatever setup that you want. And I'm going to look in my box. I believe I got a set of these in yellow also. Matter of fact, I'm going to pause and see if I got yellow ones. I'll grab those right quick and then we'll move along. Alright, like I said, Mayako also sells these things in yellow. I had some left over from my other car. I'll see if I've got enough for a full set. If not, I don't have a problem going in with some black ones and coming back later on with some yellows. So I'm going to take these black ones here. I'm going to move them aside. And these yellows are also the through style. They've got a hole all the way through. Alright, and this baggie, the last baggie inside that bag, is my screws. Whee! Alright, that's going to be my screws for the lower, the braces on the bottoms of the arms. We've got 1, 2 droop screws. We've got 1, 2 of the nuts for the hinge pins. And we've got 1, 2 nuts here, the smaller nuts. They're going to be for the diff case that connects the blocks all the way through. We've got a single screw here, not quite sure what that one's for yet. And then we've got a set screw for our cup. And I believe this screw here, the single screw, is going to be for setting the block onto the diff, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly from my first build. Alright guys, so let's get started. Let me get rid of this Norton stuff that's really annoying. It'll probably pop up a couple of times on the screen. I also have some apps that'll pop up in the background. I just got home from work and fired up the computer, so there's going to be some stuff coming up, updating and whatnot. Alright, so here we've got our gear case. We see that we're going to install a bearing in the front and the rear of the diff case through where the shaft goes through. We're going to install the shaft through both gears, or through both bearings, and then we're going to go into the cup. Nice, simple, straightforward, same as any other car. So we're going to come in. We've got a bearing here. We're going to install it into the hole, and then we're going to push it into place. It's not real hard to do. Slides right in. And we've got our other bearing. It's going to go on the other side. Same as the other side. Pushes right in. So it pushes in. It's going to be flush. And the same thing with the one in the back. It's going to be flush. Alright, so we're going to take our gear, little pinion gear here. We're going to go in from the inside of the diff case, the inside, and we're going to slide it through, line it up and slide it through, like so, and it should turn really easy. Now, when I do these, you're supposed to leave just a little teeny tiny gap when we put this diff cup on here. So what I'm going to start by doing, let me see here, I think that's a 2.5 millimeter. Let me get my wrench here. 2.5. Yes, 2.5. All right, I'll put my 2.5 on here. I'm going to get my thread locker out, because in almost every single instance of metal-to-metal contact with your screw, you want to have you some blue thread locker on there. You can use red if you want to, but it's going to be really, 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 really hard to ever service that car later on. The blue, if for some reason it jams up and you can't get it off, most times you can apply some heat either with a solder gun or a heat gun or a cigarette lighter, and that stuff will soften back up and you can get it out of there. Alright, so I'm going to find the hole in the side of the diff cup where the screw goes. After putting a little bit of thread locker on there, not a lot, just fill the threads up. Don't have to flood it. We're going to take our diff case. We're going to rotate the gear inside until we find the flat spot. I normally line the flat spot up on top, like so. And then that's where your set screw is going to line up with. So, got my hand on the gear inside, finger, and I'm going to line that set screw up with that flat spot. Once we get that into place, be careful. We can tighten it up, make sure that we move it around a little bit, make sure we're still in that flat spot. Now when you do that, and you're sure that set screw is on the flat spot all the way back, it'll leave just a little tiny bit of play inside there. I don't know if you see it on camera, but it's just a little teeny tiny bit of play. We're going to crank down on this bad boy. I mean, not enough to break the wrench, not enough to strip the screw, but anybody who's raced cars before knows that these things like to loosen up. The rear one specifically. The front one I don't have as many issues out of, but they tend to back out if you don't have thread locker on it and if you don't crank them down tight enough. Alright, so now we've got that put together. There's just a little bit of play. Don't know if you can hear it. Just a little bit of play. Maybe, I'd say less than a millimeter. Okay, so now we've got our diff put together. We're going to go to the next page. Boop. All right. Now we're going to get into the blocks. So, got our gear case here. We have an option here. So, these carbon fiber inserts are for either a high or a low spacer. So inside here, this is our A block. There's a cutout for a high or a low spacer, or a center really. So we've got these two carbon fiber one's here, and you can see one's got the hole centered. You can see it on the background of my shirt. One's got the hole centered and one's got it off to one side. Now, depending on which way you want to go, on the offset, you can either be high or low, and then the center one, of course, is centered. Now, I like to run a little bit higher diff, so I'm going to run my blocks down. So when you're looking at your block, this part, this cutout on it, goes down. It's going to be down. And then when you look at the lettering on it, it's going to be right side up. So because I want to run my diff down, my holes are going to go up, like so. And what that does is that pushes the diff, or not the diff, it pushes the block down some. So when I put the spacer under my diff to raise it up, it'll put my blocks down into a standard position. Alright, so in the instructions, it's showing my B block here. That's my B block. And then I've got my insert that goes into the B block that holds the nuts. This part's kind of tight. Just got to work it in there. And then it inserts in there like so. The raised nut section should be sticking out. Then we're going to take our smaller nuts that go to our diff screws, and we're going to slide those into the holes. We're going to push them in. Probably going to use a hex wrench if they don't slide right in. Line up that, oh, went right in there. Okay, so they are going to go in. And these are Teflon lock screws. So the Teflon's going, the round section of it's going to face out. And the hex part goes in. So now that we've got all that put together, we're going to take our diff case. We're going to set it on here with the large cutout facing down. This is our tower side. This is the bottom side. And then we've got that single screw, which is a 2mm. Let me get my 2mm wrench here. Got my whole pile of wrenches over to the side, so I just got to dig for it. We're going to tighten the screw up. It's just going to be snug. We aren't going to go super tight. Its whole purpose is just to hold this into place. So now we've got our block in place, our B block. Alright, so back to the instructions. We're going to go, actually it looks like they put pills in here too. Yep. So they're showing the pills in here. Alright, so with this being the back side of the front gear case, and this is going to be on the front side of the gear case, and the cutout is going to be on the bottom, I know that I want kick up in the front of my car. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to choose my either 0.5 or 1 degree pills. There's a 0.5. There's a 0.5. You can't hardly see it, but there's actually a little number that's stamped in the top of that thing. It's not colored. So front, I want up. So we'll put that 0.5 in there. Where's the 0.5? There it is. That one's going to go up also. So when it goes in like this, the hole's going to be towards the top. In the back, I'd like to have a 0.5 there also if I've got it. If not, I'll go with a 0 for now, and then I'll worry about a 0.5 later. There's 1.5. There's another 0.5. Okay, so I do have 2 0.5s. Alright, so those are on the back, and I want those to go down. The purpose in doing this is it creates an angle on your arms that allows the car to handle bumps a little bit better, and it also changes your steering angle just a little bit. So think about it like this. 0.5 in the front, 0.5 in the rear. You're actually doing a, nut came out. You're actually doing a whole 1. So the angle can either be a 0.5 or a 1. Or you could put a 1 in the front and a 1 in the back and get a whole 2 out of it, but we don't want that. Not starting off. Maybe later on in the tuning, but we're going to start with my same setup I've got on my other car for my arms, and then we're going to see if that works. If not, then we'll dial it back or dial it forward. We'll see what works out. That's all part of the fun of these things, is trying to figure out what works and what don't. Alright, we're going to go to the next page. Alright, now we're going to slide the A block on. So we're going to make sure that the nuts stay here. So what I like to do is put my fingers over it. especially if I'm turning it up like this. So then we're going to take this block, large cutout going down, or the one cutout going down, and the slope section is going to go towards the top. I'm going to balance it up here on top. I'm going to take our two smaller screws. It's the one with the little TP top on top of it. We're going to slide it through the block, and it's going to go through the whole case. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Through block. Find a hole in there, and that slides all the way through. Alright. You'll have about that much space there. That's pretty much all the way through to the other side. So that's going to be a 2.5 screw, I believe. Yes, it is. And we're going to start screwing them in. You'll feel it push on the nut on the back side where your finger's at. Just kind of run it in until it's almost tight. And then get the other side. You don't want to tighten it up too much immediately because it'll kick it over to one side and make it a little bit harder to line up with the nuts. So you just kind of want to get it to where the cap of the screw is just about to contact the block. Alright, now that I know that both of those are attached to the nuts, we'll go ahead and crank them down. You don't have to be Superman with these things. Just give it a couple uh-uhs. Well, we just snugged up, and then we've got our blocks on. And people who don't have the through bolts for hinge pins are looking at this and going, well, how's he going to get the hinge pins in there? But that's where these bolts come in handy. You don't have to pull your blocks off to change your hinge pin. Makes it nice. So, moving along to the next page of our setup here. Oh, now they want me to do the arms. I'm going to take my carbon fibers here, take them out. And if you're not doing a new car build and you've got one of these cars and you're just wanting to add them to the bottom, they do give you a bag of screws. But because we're building our car from fresh and it came with screws, we're just going to use the screws that came in the kit. Alright, we're going to take our arms. Plastic piece just pops off the bottom. Kind of snaps into place a little bit. I'll pop those off. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break this this model car piece off the side of it. Alright, so we have our left and our right arms. And when we put these carbon fibers on here, they are cut to where the flange screw will go down inside of the arm a little bit, so they're kind of flush with the bottom. Kind of see it. And that's the side that doesn't have the cutout in it. This is the side that faces the arm itself. So we're going to put those on there like so. And then we got this giant pile of screws. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to see if I've got my bit that's the right size. May not have brought it with me. That means I got to hand screw these things. Let me see if it's in my box. Nope, I didn't bring it with me. So I think these are 1.5 or 0.05. Let's see here. 1.5. Yes, they're 1.5. So we just go through and put them in all the screw holes. Just kind of snug them down in there. Again, you don't have to go crazy with it. Just give it a little enough to where you don't have to worry about them backing out, which they're in plastic pretty good, so they shouldn't really come out. They don't really get a lot of forces down on that section that would work the screws out. It's not like the bottom of the chassis that's getting smacked on the ground all the time. These get beat up a little bit. As long as you stay off the pipes, normally these last a good while. As long as you stay out of accidents, you don't have to worry about breaking them if you break your arms. These don't stop your arms from getting broken. I'll tell you that firsthand. And I'll also tell you, if you break your arm with these on there, more than likely you're breaking the carbon fiber also, and you'll have to order new carbon fiber pieces when you order new arms. I've been known to just put the broken carbon fiber back on there and send it. It still makes the arm more rigid. Even if it's broken in half, you'll just have a weak spot in one part. But like I said, it's not really structural. You're not stopping any breakage using these things. It just stiffens the flex up on the arms. I say I like a little bit more rigid front end. It just feels like it handles a little bit better. I did the same thing with my low CXC Elite that I had before, my Mayakos. Went to the carbon fiber inserts and noticed the difference. So when I built the Mayako prototype, I went with the plastic first, and then later on they offered carbon fiber. Went to the carbon fiber and noticed the difference in the way the car handled, especially on the higher grip applications. We don't have high grip all the time. It is nice to have that extra little bit of rigidity in your car when you are running high grip. You don't want it to flex too much when you got a lot of grip. You want your suspension and your tires to do all the work. I'm going to keep putting these screws in here. There's a bunch of them. Try to do them as fast as possible so we don't have any dead time on the microphone. You'll probably hear my dogs barking, my neighbors outside, so they're out there barking, and I'm right at the back window of the house where my backyard is, where the dogs are. So all right. Screw number 5 in this arm. I think there's 10 total. I said in the previous video, you put these cars together with these wrenches, man, you're going to have Popeye arms by the time you're done. Your arms are going to be sore. Your forearms. Turning these wrenches. If you're using a power drill, make sure you're using one with torque settings, and make sure that you are not running this thing at the highest torque setting. Especially on these smaller screws, it's going to fight you. Had a hard time getting that one started. That's okay. We're good. They give me an extra screw, or am I missing a hole? It looks like I just have an extra screw in the kit. It's kind of good to get put aside with the other screws in case I need them later. Normally don't lose them, but you never know. Make it a May need to do an arm rebuild one day, and another set of arms may be missing a screw. And then I'll have a screw to put back in there. May have a buddy one day that's looking for that certain specific screw for his 10 scale buggy or whatever. Alright, I set that screw over here with these others. Get it out of the way so it's not taking up space. Alright, now we're also seeing here, which I missed on my first car build with the instructions, here is our droop screw. And it's got an assembly note here. Insert driver from the bottom of the arm to thread the droop screw. So, most other cars have a droop screw that is on the inner hinge side of the arm. The Mayako does it on the outer side. So what we do is we come in, this is the bottom where the carbon fiber is at. We're going to go through this hole right here, like so. We're going to take the droop screw, we're going to put it on the end of our 2mm hex, like so. Put a finger on top to give it a little bit of pressure. We're going to bring it back to the screw hole. We're going to find it, and then we're going to lefty-loosey it in there. And I use a lot of droop, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with it all the way down. And then if I need to take some droop out later, I will run it in a little bit. Alright, same thing on this side. Take our droop screw, put it on the end of our hex driver from the bottom. Use our finger, give it some pressure, make sure we find the hole. And then we lefty-loosey it in there. It's lefty-tighty with these. Run it all the way in until it stops. And it's recommended to do this when you're setting your car up, and then once you go to start setting your droop, you just run it in a little bit and it'll adjust. Alright, I'm going to pause my video right quick. I'm going to go see why my dogs are barking so much. I'm pretty sure it's a neighbor, but I'll be right back. Okay, brought them in the house. That'll get rid of all that noise. Alright, so now that we've got that droop screw in there, and we've got all this other stuff attached, let's go on to the next step. Page number 20. Alright, now we get to put the front arms on using our through screws. These plastic washers right here, these spacers, are what was on these throwaways that I took off the arms a while ago. So we're going to pop these out of here. Anybody who's ever done a model car knows we spin them and they'll pop right out. Alright, so we got 4 of these bad boys. So, according to the instructions, we're going to set it like this. We've got our 2 arms. We've got our hexagonal structure on top of the arm. Carbon fiber on bottom. Right? So if we look at the picture, we're going to put this one here and this one here. Right? So, here's how I'm going to do this to start with. I'm going to take the arms off of here. And take my first screw. I'm going to push it through the block and the pill. Then I'm going to set the washer just on the end of that screw right there. Just on the end. Let me see if I can get it to where you can see it. Yep, just on the end. Just stick it through just enough to hold it. I'm going to put the arm in. And I'm going to shove it through the inner hinge hole on the arm like so. It's going through the block, through the pill, through the first spacer, through the arm, you can see it in the middle, and then I'm going to get it to go almost all the way through, just to where I see the tip in this space here, and I'm going to pull it back until it's back inside the arm. Now I'm going to take one of my next spacers and I'm going to work it in between the arm and the block. Move the arm up and down a little bit, work it in there. I got my screw sticking out too far. Yep, that's what it was. Alright, still not in place, so I'm going to take a smaller hex driver. Let me see here, which one do I want to use? Let's see if the 2 mil will get in there. Yep, that did it. So I'm going to kind of line up the hole the best I can. I'm going to feel out pushing the screw through if possible. It's pretty close to lined up. Looking down through the pill to see if the screw hole is lined up. Almost. It looks like it's probably right there. Alright, let me see if I have a hex driver in here. Is that size? Nope, I'm going to use a wrench. Kind of work it in there. Line it up with the hole in the pill. Pretty close. Yay, there it goes. Just trying to get that threaded section through the spacer and the pill all at one time. See if turn the screw, get it through. Yep. I get it far enough through to where I can get the nut on the other side, then I can just tighten the nut up and it'll pull it in. Alright, so got it poking out the top a little bit there, not by much. I'm going to take me a nut, put it on the other side. And we're going to tighten this bad boy up. So when you first put these cars together, it's spinning on the other side, I'm going to have to get my wrench roll out. When you're first putting these cars together, they're going to be kind of tight. Well, I do have a hex that'll fit it. Cool. So the arms are going to be a little tight on the hinge pins. Now once you get the car to the track and you start driving it, the plastics will work into each other pretty good and they'll loosen up. Normally get a few runs out of them. I mean, they aren't stiff by no means, so you can flop it back and forth. It's just not that, it's not going to flop down by itself. Once it breaks on a little bit, you can pick it up and it'll fall. So we're going to do the same thing. Now, also keep in mind this bolt, when you tighten it up, it's not going to be snug up against the blocks on either side. You want a little bit of play in there. You'll tighten it all the way up, but it's not going to pull all the way tight. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Let's go in here. So we're going to put the head of the bolt through on this side. Get our spacer on there. Get it started. And we're going to take our arm with the hex pattern on top, facing the top of the gear case. And we'll push this bolt through. You can see it go through the middle there. We'll look through and make sure that it's not poking out the other side. Then we're going to take our other spacer and we're going to work it in like we did the other side. You also realize real quick if you didn't put your pills all the way in. So you want to make sure when you do put your pills into your blocks that you do make sure that you get them fully into place. Alright, so I'm going to eyeball down through the pill. Line the screw up with the hole as good as I can. See if I can get it started. I got my right hex driver, so that made it easier to push through. Let me get the threads to the other side and we'll get the nut on there. We'll hold the other side with a wrench and we're going to tighten up the nut driver until it stops. Alright, it stopped. And there again, we're going to have just a little bit of gap between the cap head on the screw and the block. It's supposed to be there. So, now we got both arms mounted on. They move freely. They're not binding. Make sure you move them completely up and down. Make sure you don't have any binding areas. Should be a nice smooth transition all the way up and down. Feels great. Alright, so now we have our gear case and our arms put together. Let's go on to the next step, see what they want us to do. Alright, we get to put a tower. We get to put our diff case in there, a cover, and our spacers for the arm height. Right, I told you you can adjust your arm height. These are slotted. This is slotted. We've got different inserts we can put in here to either raise or lower our towers. So this is in another bag, I believe. I believe that's going to be in the next bag, I believe. Bag D. Let me find bag D. Guess I could have been a little more organized with this stuff. H-E-M J-O bag D. There it is. Right, so now we're going to move along to bag D. Now guys, I know this video is going to run a little bit longer than the last one. So there's a little bit more to this. This is going to be fully assembling the front end of the car. So that's what we're going to do. Alright, bag D does not have the tower in it, but it's got the cover and all the other goodies. Let me find the bag with the tower in it. That's going to be OPC1. OPC1 will have the tower in it. There's two towers in here. There's a carbon fiber rear tower and aluminum front tower. So we are pulling out the aluminum front tower. This one here. Anybody familiar with a race car knows that normally these holes in the bottom are just a normal hole. These are slotted. Holes inside here where our adjustment block goes in. Those are slotted. It can go up and down. We've got our normal shock adjustments here, 3-hole. And then we've got our normal camber rod adjustments here, so also 3-hole. So, according to the directions, which I'll probably be using a drill for part of this, we're going to take our tower with the cutout sections in it. And it's going to be facing, let me see here. I have it facing the same way to me as it is on the screen. So we're going to take this tower and we're going to set it over around this raised section. So it's going to slide into place like so. Fits right in there. And you can use the different things and you can adjust the diff height up and down about 1 millimeter. So I'm going to run the low diff setting. I want my diff tower, or my tower, down. So now I'm going to find my block that goes in there, which is this one here. Actually, is there a different spacer in that bag? I think so. Let's see here. See if that in that bag to run that in the lower. I may end up having to run it in the mid. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and run it in the mid because that's the one that's here. Yeah, I'm going to run it in mid height. That's the one I've already got in here. If I come across the high-low one, I'll put it in there. It'll have offset holes in it. Alright, so didn't open my bag of screws yet. That's what I should have done before I did this. Alright, we got our bag of screws here. Got some grub screws in here. We got 2 bearings in here. A couple different size screws. So we're going to use the 3x12 button heads. There's the M3x12 button heads. That'll be a 2 millimeter, but I'm going to break this bad boy out. We're going to save our forearms a little bit today. So we're going to go through the plastic to the gear case, and I run it in, not all the way, just where the button head starts to touch the plastic. I don't want to snug it in with the power driver. I don't have a whole lot of trust on the torque on these things, so I run it in almost to where it touches, just where it touches. And then I will take my hand driver because I know exactly what that hand driver is going to do. So I'm going to tighten these up. Now these are going into plastic, so you don't want to like crank on them, but you want to make sure that they are pretty darn snug. Maybe a little single not a double just a single And then that tower should be nice and snug on there just with these 2 screws. Okay, so I'm going to turn this so y'all can see this side. Alright, now we've got our tower, got our gear case, and our blocks with our arms attached. So I'm going to turn it back around this way, that way I make sure that I put the diff in there correctly. We're going to find the diff that we had marked with the F for the front. The front. So, looking inside here, with the open side facing you, you want the gear side of this diff on the left. You'll feel it go in and it should mesh up with the pinion gear for the cup. See the cup turning when I'm turning the gear? And if I turn where you can see it, if I turn the pinion, it turns the diff. Alright, so once we put that on there, oh, you know what? I missed a step. Yes, I did. Hold on one second. Let me pull this back out. Let me take this diff cover back off. I missed an important step here. I don't believe I did it because I did it on the first part. I don't mind taking these screws out with a driver. Just tightening them up. Now they come all the way up, almost. Okay, so this is what I missed. We've got a body mount. Body mount was also in that bag. So our body mount, you see that? There's two holes right here. We've got a screw hole, and then we've got a pin that sticks out. So it's going to go in there. Pin goes in a hole, and then we've got our body mount nub sticks up. And then we've got our, which one do they want? They want the long one or the short one? I think it's a short screw because there's only one of those. So we've got our M3x10 with a fluted head on it. That screw right there. That's going to go through the stiff case. You can see which one it goes into. It's got a little flanged hole there for it. Push on the body mount at the same time we're screwing in to get it started. Make sure our pin stays in the hole on the other side. Snug that down pretty good. Just a little bit of a You don't have to give it a because there again it's in the plastic. Alright, now we're going to put this diff case back. This tower back on. I've already run them screws in one time before, so it's already got already threaded in, so I was able to start on my hand. We're going to take our drill, do the same thing, run them in just where it touches. We'll take our driver and we're going to snug them down. Just like so. Alright, now we're going to put our diff back in. That's facing me, it's on the left. So you guys looking at it, do it again so y'all can see it this time. Sets in with the bearings set in little channels on either side. And it'll go together and everything turns and meshes. So, once we get that together, we're going to take some of our TLR grease, same grease that we used before.
Motion detected.
And I'm going to work the grease down to the end of the tube. And inside the gear, I'm going to put a bead of this TLR black high pressure grease in there. I rolled the gear and I put the grease all the way around where the teeth mesh. Here, I'll turn the cup so you can see it going around, all the way around. You can see how the gear's kind of working it in together. That'll reduce your wear between the gears. So, now that I've got that together, now I've got my cover, my diff cover. It's going to go in here. It's got a little flange piece in there, so when you put it in, it's going to be nice and snug. Sits into place, it's not going to move around. Now I've got these longer fluted screws here. Let me see here. Which one are they wanting? They're wanting the M15s. What are the other two screws for here? Those are M12s. Okay, so we want the longer ones. These two longer ones, the M15s. And just like before with our driver, we're going to take it and we're going to drive it almost all the way in. on this side. And by the way, guys, you'll see that almost all my tools are MIP. Almost all my drivers are MIP. I've just got some trashy nut drivers, but my hex drivers themselves are MIP. Alright, now I've got those run almost all the way in. I'm going to come in and I'm going to finish snugging just a single for the cover. All you're doing is a cap. So the only thing that attaches to this that's going to have any force on it whatsoever are sway bars. So it's only got 2 screws holding that bad boy on there from that side. So that's it. Now on the bottom of the diff, when we put it on the chassis, screw's going to go through these holes into the bottom of this diff cover. So if you ever need to change your diff out, you disconnect your sway bars, take this screw out, take this screw out, take this screw out, take this screw out. This cover pops off and you can dump the gear out the back, change it out. So all in all, I think it's like 4 screws and 2 balls, or 6 screws if you want to do it that way. Okay, so now we pretty much have our gear case put together with our arms. So now we're going to take a step into the next part of the instructions. Bam, page number 22. Now we're going to do our sway bars. Get to start having some fun. Alright, we've got our sway bar links. They look like bones. Let me get these other things out of the way here. So we got our sway bar links, and then we've got these little teeny tiny little grub screws here. There's 4 of them. Get these other screws out, and then we got these bearings here. And then in this other baggie that was in bag C, we've got the rest of the stuff to hook these things up. We got our hinge balls, and our, I don't know what you call these things, but they're what the grub screw goes in, and it holds your sway bar up against the bearings. So it says insert the roll bar before assembling the bearings and collets. Okay, these are called collets. So roll bar is probably going to be in another bag. Let me take these empty bags and throw them away. That way they're not taking up space. Alright, let me find my sway bar bag. They're in there with the springs we didn't use. Let me pop these bad boys out of here. So we've got 2 separate sway bars here. We've got a long and a short. The long goes to the rear. They don't fit our sway bar holes here, so we're going to set it aside. That'll go onto the rear. So we've got our front one, which lines up with our sway bar holes on the front of the arms right here. Lines up centered. So to start with, there's 2 holes on this cover that we just installed, right? So we're going to take our bar, which is hard to see. I know it's black and my background's dark. We're going to slide it through both holes through the back, and we're just going to kind of let it lay down on top of the arms like so. So you go through the holes in the back and just lay on the arms like that. Puts them pretty much in position. So the first thing we're going to do here is we got these small bearings. It's got a flange on the side. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, but it's got a little lip on the side. The lip is going to be the second part to go on there. So when you put it on, like so, you're going to feed it up. It's going to go to the plastic, and then the bearing, you press the press the bearing into the plastic, and the little lip's going to be sticking out. And same thing for the other side. Put it on with the lip going on second. We'll push it into the plastic with the lip out, like so. See the silver bearing on there, both sides. Cool, cool. Okay, now that we have those on there, we're going to take these little collets and they've got a slot out in them. So what the slot does is when you work it down that rod and it goes around the angles, it will be able to fit through there because it fits on there kind of tight, not too awfully tight. So we're going to take the collet, we're going to put it in with the small part first, and the small part will go inside of the bearing. Should fit right inside there, just like so. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to take that collet, work it in. Make sure that the threaded hole is facing somewhat up or back. That way you can access them. Get that closer to the camera so you can see. You see I got the collet with the screw hole up. And the same thing with the other one. Because we're going to take these little teeny tiny little screws. I believe those are 1.5s. There's no 1.5 here. I'll put it on my driver here. Yes, it's a 1.5. We'll take this little dab of thread lock. I've actually had these screws come out. Just put a little dab of it on the threads. Don't have to be much. Don't have to have some big mess. Just enough to where when you screw it down, you can see it squishing in there. Don't tighten it up yet. Just run it in most of the way. You can run it in until it snugs and then back off just a little bit. You want to be able to move the bar inside there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the other one. A little dab of blue, just a little dab. Make it damp. And run that one in until it's snug and then back off. Now we should be able to hold the collets in place. And we should be able to slide this bar back and forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to eyeball it. You can also measure if you want. My eye calibration is not bad. It's normally pretty good. So get it centered, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to tighten these collet screws up. Give them a nice little It's tiny screws, so you don't need to do a full Alright, now that that's in there, the collets are holding the bearing in place, and this is hinging using the bearings. Kind of neat, huh? Okay. Now, looking at the other side of the arm, we're going to put together our hinges and balls for these things. So, we got our dog bones here. Remember this tool? This is our shock tool that has a ball pin on it. So that ball pin is what we're going to use to put these balls in these dog bones. I'm going to take the ball, set it on top just like that. I'm going to take the pin side and I'm going to put it just like so. Pins on the ball, and then it's going to push it into the plastic when we squeeze. Just like that. We're going to do the same thing to the other one. Don't matter which side you put it on, just put it on one side. Set the ball on there. Same. It's nice little tick. It pops into place. Alright, now we've got a lower ball on each one. Now we get to come in for the upper balls. So the swivel balls that go onto the top, these are going to attach to the end of the rod that we just put in. There's a screw hole in there. So it's got a flat section and a screw hole. So the ball section of these bad boys are going to go in the bone. So we're going to use the same tool, but it's going to require a little bit of effort because it's taller. It's not going to stand there by itself. We're going to use our finger to hold it in place. Fingers to hold it in place. We're going to put it in there, just like so. Here's a rod right here. There's the metal piece. There's a plastic piece. Line it up, and then you should be able to pop, squeeze it right in there. Now, we've got that in there. Nice free wiggles. Alright. Same thing to the other side. Use my fingers, get it into place. Get it in there. Nice and satisfying sound. Pop. Cool. I'm telling you, these tools are a lifesaver. If you don't have these, then you'll be putting them in with a pair of pliers and you'll end up tightening them up because you'll be mashing the plastic or you'll damage the aluminum balls. Alright. So what we're going to do next, we'll take the arm with the rod through it. We're going to lift the rod up a little bit. We're going to take the part sticking out of that upper ball, and we're going to slide it onto that rod. We're going to take the dog bone, and we're going to set it in the slot in the arm. And we will have to push it down into place a little bit. Oh, it's kind of loose in there. So then we've got these screws right here. Call them a barrel head screw. I don't know what their actual terminology is. I call them a barrel head. So they're going to go in the hole right here on the side of the arm when we push this in. Probably have to use a nut driver to start tightening it in because they've got it to where it threads all the way through. And that's going to be our 2.5, I believe. Yes, it is. 2.5, I'll get it started. I didn't bring my hex bit 2.5 home with me, of course. It's like a 1.5. I don't have the bit with me, so I can't use the drill to run these screws in. And of course, these are going to be the long ones. So if your hole is lined up on your ball, the screw should go in with no problem. We're going to run it in all the way till the bottom's out. If you use a drill, remember, don't go all the way in with the drill. Then we're going to give it just a single Alright. When you're done with this side, that's what it should look like. Pin should be sticking out the upper ball. And we should have a screw in the hole in the bottom that goes through. Okay? So, before I do the other side, I'm going to go ahead and take one of these other little small grub screws. This is a 1.5. Get it on the end of my driver here. I'll put a little dab of blue on there. Just a little dab. And we're going to get it started on the hinge ball. And what I like to do is I like to line up where the rod is just flush with the outside of the ball. Put the grub screw straight up if possible so you can access it later much easier. And then we're going to tighten down the grub screw We're going to give it a single and when it's all said and done, that's what that side will look like. Now we're going to photocopy that with the other side. We've already got the dog bone put together. The bone put together, so we're going to slide it on with the long section towards the back. We'll put the ball in place. Get the screw started. Barrel head screw on that side also. Starting in the hole. Mirror image from the other side. I normally like to do this before I put the grub screw in because it just makes it a little, seems like it's a little bit easier to me. Somebody may have a different opinion about it, but just the way I do it. Get the thing to line up. I ran that screw in a little too far, I think. Trying to line the ball up with the screw hole down there. There it is. Alright, now I should be able to run the screw in. Again, if you use a driver, do not drive it all the way in with the driver. Trust the calibration on your fingers more. We're going to give it a little bit of a and then same thing on the other side with a little baby grub screw. Put it on the end of your driver, put a little bit of blue on it. Blue thread locker. And get it to go on into my driver. There it goes. Got a little bit of silicone on my driver and it's causing me issues. Used it to poke the end of a silicone tube. A little bit of blue on there. A little dab. The same thing as the other side. We're going to line the rod up with the outside edge. We're going to get the screw facing straight up if possible. Always remember, try to put these things together to where you can access them at the track during a hurry. Sometimes we have limited time between races to make a repair. And if you blow an arm out and you can't get your stuff apart to replace it because your screw is on the bottom side of one of these things, you're not going to be happy with yourself. So always think about that when you're putting this stuff together. That aim the stuff to where it's going to be the easiest access as possible. There's a single and that one is on there. Alright guys, that is what your sway bar assembly will look like when it's put together. Notice the grub screws are facing up on everything. Now that that's on there, you lift one arm and it lifts the other arm. Yeah. I'm not lifting that arm, I promise. Look. That sway bar is doing that. Sway bar allows you to keep the left and the right side of the car in contact with the ground when rotating around corners and stuff. It's mainly what it is. Just makes the left and the right side of the car communicate with one another. Okay, before attaching the roll bar to the links, make sure it moves freely. Insert the roll bar before assembling bearings and collets. Do not over tighten on the M3 grub screws. Like I said, just a little and you don't have to do a full and you don't have to break the end of your driver or strip the end of the screw out. If you strip the end of the screw out, I feel sorry for you later on when you got to take it out. I went too many pages here. Alright, next page. That's just a picture showing what it should look like when it's assembled. Okay. Now we're going to start getting into the steering assembly a little bit. So we're going to rotate this around so the camera can see. Alright, so this is what we're looking at. Same thing in the picture. See, we got our body mount right here, which in the picture is right here. So this is our upper steering plate. That's going to get these 2 and 3 12 screws that I was measuring out earlier between 12 and the 15. We've got a spacer right here that kind of lines it up, and then we got a little short screw here. So here's our steering plate, upper steering plate. Here is a 1 millimeter spacer deal. Get it where you see it. It's got a little ball sticking off the bottom of it. I don't know if you can see it. A little nub sticking off the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on first. I'll line up our holes. We'll take our 2 millimeter driver here. We're going to get this little screw. And we're going to go ahead and drive that into the hole in the spacer. Ball facing away from the aluminum. I'll show you all once I get it put together here a little bit closer. You can see what it looks like. Trying to line these holes up, make sure everything stays in a line when I tighten it up. You don't have to put a lot of crank on that, just snug it down some. It's just an alignment tool for your cover, keeps it from moving around. Alright, now, see the dimple sticking off the bottom, screw went in the top, and the screw holes are lined up. That's all it needs, because that dimple is going to fit a little cutout right here. Just kind of helps with alignment and helps keep this from moving around if you take a side hit. So I'm going to take this, ball facing down. We're going to set it in here like so, and then we're going to put screws in those 2 back holes. It's 2 M12s and 3 12 millimeter. Take these little screws, push them into the plastic a little bit. They'll hold themselves for the most part. Set it back into place. You'll see the screws kind of work their ways into the holes. Get them started with the hand driver. Okay, there again. Those screws are going in those 2 holes right here. Right there and right there. We're going to run them almost all the way in with the driver, not all the way in. Get them almost all the way down, then come back in with my hand driver, and we're going to snug them down. And the same thing when you're screwing into any plastics, you just need to give it a nice little When we're running metal into metal, we can really crank on that stuff. We'll give it a double or a triple Alright, so there it is. We've got our upper steering plate in place, screwed down, ready to go. You look at it, it even kicks up a little bit. That's because of the angles of the chassis and the angles of how everything's going to go together. Looks funny. You installed it correctly if it's angled up. You see, it pokes up like a wing. It's supposed to do that. When everything goes together, this will make sense. The diff looks, when you set it on the ground, it's naturally kicked back as it is. And then once you put it on the chassis is a little settled also, so when that goes on, this will all line up with your steering rack and all that stuff. Alright, let's go to the next 25. Alright, we're going to put some rods together. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to set this on this piece of paper over here. Okay. So, here's the camber rods or the steering rods I'm putting together. Bag OPC1. Okay, yep, got the right one. Alright, I'm going to take my rear tower out of here so I can dump everything else out on tape. Then all the screws for the other tower I'll leave in that bag to go with that. Alright. So, we've got 4 ends here. We've got 2 angled, 4 straight. I don't know why they give me two straight, or 4 straight and 2 angled. We'll see when we're putting it together. Okay, on these rods have, you can get it on the screen, rods have notches in it. That's that red line that they have drawn through there is that notch. So in my orientation where I'm sitting at, I'm going to set it like this. We've got the angled arm on this side, and then we got the straight one on this side. You know what, are those longer than the others? No, they're saying like, I'll figure out what they go to later. So the threads on one side is backwards than the other. That way when you tighten up the flat section in the middle, it pulls them together. You loosen them, it pushes them apart, and that's how you adjust your camber. Same thing on your steering rods, it adjusts your steering rods. So we got our line on this side of the hex for the flat sections, our tightening sections. And then this is normal thread, this is reverse thread. So we're going to do this one this way, and then this next one we're going to flip it around to where the line is on the right, because if you notice on the page it says make left same as the right. So we're going to do that. Hold on. It's going to be the same. So we're going to have those facing the same direction. Straight and angle. So where is my, I have a TLR camber and steering wrench here. 3.5 to 5 millimeter wrench. This thing's been with me a long time. It's seen a lot of these put together. So it's going to go to the 5 millimeter. We'll kind of hold it in place, one hand. I'm going to take the end. I'm going to look at the threads and I'm going to tighten it up. Sort of push in there and tighten at the same time. And these plastics are kind of hard, so they are hard to get started. Tighten that down on there. So my rule of thumb is I like to run it into where the inside of the plastic is at the edge. So I'm going to take a larger driver here and I'm going to use that to rotate it. So like I said, rule of thumb where I like to start at is I run the edge of the plastic to the end of the threads. What that is, that's a good starting point. So when I go in to measure, like on the page that you see down there, it says 29 millimeter. So if I put it here, I know I'm not too far in, and it gives me a good starting point when I put the other one on, because if I run it to the end of the threads, we're going to be pretty damn close on both sides, and I know I'll have the same amount of threads inside of the plastic, and they'll be just as deep, and everything will look nice and balanced. I like stuff to look balanced. So we're going to do that was the angled one we put on there, so we're going to do the same thing with the straight one. Remember, pay attention to which way the threads are going so you know which way to tighten, because one's a reverse thread. Alright, I got started. Let me get a couple turns on here, and then I'll stick a hex driver through the hole. Be smooth with it. On the round part of the hex driver, don't put it where the hex is, or you'll chew the inside of the hole up, and then you'll have bad words to say about yourself later. Alright, so line it up so the left and the right are facing the same way. Okay. Just like that. Right? We'll go ahead and knock this other side out, same way. Look at the thread, see which way it's going here. Let's go the right way. I just said I want to start immediately. Oh, I was turning the whole rod to the wrench come off of the flat section. Alright, if you have a hard time starting these things, like we did before when we were trying to start the shock shafts in, take your body reamer tool. Sometimes in making the plastics, they leave a little ridge inside there and they don't want to start. So make sure I got the mark in the right place, and then we'll start back on that same side again. These are the worst parts about building the cars. I hate doing camber rods off the start. Starting camber rods. Once they're in there, they're fine. It's just getting them started sucks. I've probably built 15 kits now, and they're all a pain doing camber rods. Well, I think I was turning it the wrong way. Yeah, I think I was turning it the wrong way to begin with. The first one went together so easy. And some people say, just grab it with a pair of pliers. No, I don't want to scratch them all up. Finally, got started. Alright, same thing. Put the wrench through. Snug it down till it's the end of the threads. Do the same thing with the other side. Look at the direction of the threads. This one's going to turn lefty-tighty. And when you're doing these at this point, if you would run all them screws in by hand without using a driver, your arms are going to be sore, especially starting these things, because you got to put some pressure behind them, and it takes a little bit of patience. The 15 cars I've probably built, I have not had one set of these things that was easy to do. Alright, run it to the end of the threads, and we're going to line the holes up, just like so. So I'm not going to worry about measuring these things to the 29 millimeters yet. What I'm going to do is, after I put them on the arms and we get everything started to be installed, I'll work them in then. It'll be way out of adjustment to begin with, and then we'll bring them into 29 millimeter and everything will be cool. Alright, so it shows that we have these pivot balls here. These pivot balls, if you look at it, it's going to be this direction. Pivot ball is going to go on the backside. And using our handy dandy shock tool, pop, goes right in. So then, keep in mind, these are the angled sections are the ones that are going to go in behind the tires. So we're going to have the squared section right here. It's going to be sort of inside the rim of the tire, and it's going to be facing the hub. So you got to think this side is going to be the same thing. So we want to make sure that that ball goes in on the same side if it was installed on the car. Oh, didn't have it centered up. There we go. Alright, so now we've got both are angled up. Try to get up. That one, that one, that one, that one. There we go. Both are angled up and both are on the same side. Okie dokie. We've got our other 4 balls that were in this other bag here in the OPC one. We'll dump those out. It's going to be the same thing with these. They're going to go facing the same way as the one at the other end of the shaft. So if you got the square section sticking out the right side, you want the same thing on both sides. Like that. See? Same thing with this one. They're longer, so it's a little bit harder to line up with the tool, but they're on there. Just be careful if you use your tool, don't let it kick to the side too hard because there's threads inside these and it will damage them. Something to think of. Alright. Alright, next page. See? Told y'all. Note the direction. Note the direction. So, we'll put this section together and then I'm going to go take a short break. So, let's get this going. Alright, so, we've got it here. We've got our turnbuckle, or our bell crank upper brace facing to the right. I've got it like that on my computer screen and that's the way it is to me. So, do it the way I see it, that way I don't make any confusing mistakes. Alright, so we're going to look at this and we're going to go, got a square section on the straight bar, square section on the angled bar, and it's going to go over here. So, any car I've ever run, I run my any car that I've had camber rods on, let me rephrase that. Any car I've had camber rods on, I have always put them into the middle or lower position. So we're going to start with the neutral middle position. And we're going to use the M12 or the M312 screw. It's going to be a 2.5 millimeter. And I need to get that screw started. So I'm going to take a pair of needle nose because there's not much space there. I don't know if I got enough room for a wrench in there. Just basically holding it. Like I said, it's got threads through it, so you hold it, and then once it bottoms out to the tower, it should be able to snug up. It's not going to crank on this set of pliers, and I like to square the flat sections up too, so it looks all nice and pretty. Alright, now that's metal to metal. Go, you crank down on that bad boy, and it's a large thread screw also. Alright, we'll do the same for the other side. See M12. Where's my rod? There it is. Okay. M12. Moving in the center hole. Right there. Then we're going to get it started. I'm going to take my needle nose and just hold the flat sections. Run the screw in until it goes all the way down. Try to make it as square as possible. If you're holding it by the flat parts of the nut side, it'll just hold your pliers straight up and down, and it'll be square. Alright, now it's making contact, and that's snugged a little bit. I'll take the pliers out, and I'm going to crank down on it. Well, that's not going to do it without the pliers. It's going to try to turn around. It's going to make a liar out of me. I'm going to hold it again, straight up and down. I'm going to crank on it. Rah. Super tight. Okay, this is what we got now. Sweet. Coming together so well. Like I said, it's going to be a long video, but it's a lot of information in here. All right. So next is we're going to put our hubs together, but I'm going to take a break right quick. You aren't going to notice that I'm gone very long, but I need a break after all that. And before I get involved with this, because this is going to require a little bit of tuning as we're putting it together to make sure that everything functions properly. These little spacers right here, and this crush washer right here, and this spacer here, you got to put it together just right with these spacers. And it'll tell you right here if the axle binds, do this, and if there's too much axle movement, do that. So before we get involved with this, I'm going to go take a break. Go use the restroom, grab smoke, maybe grab something to eat right quick, and then we'll continue on. I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. So, wife's going to bring me some dinner, so that's good. Alright, so now we're going to do what you see on the screen there. We're going to do the hub and the bones. Alright, bag E and bag OPD3. Oh, I forgot to grab that one. I'll need to grab it. But we'll go ahead and get this dumped out on the table here. Like I said, this is going to require some tuning to get it just right. So we've got minimal wear and minimal binding. This is part of the tunability of these cars, so to speak. We've got all sorts of goodies inside here. What size are those hexes? Those hexes don't say, but I've got some optional 6mm hexes we're going to use on this. There's our Ackerman plates. Got some red washers. These are called crush washers. They're red aluminum. They go inside the hub. Inside this baggie here, we've got our outer hinge pins that go through our arms and our hubs. We've got all sorts of spacers. Got our hex pins. Got our diff pin, or our bone pins. Large inner washers, smaller outer washers. These are our CVD pins, the shorter ones. Here's our barrels that go with our CVDs. Our CVD hubs. And these are the hex pins. These go to these. And these are hinge pins. Okay. Next baggie. Got all of our grub screws and all our goodies like that in there. Also our kingpins. So I'm not going to go through and explain what each one of these things are. We'll do it as we go. It's just got a bunch of different things in there. Alright, and I say OPD3, which is OPD3 bag. And this is going to have our actual hubs in there. So we are left and our right hubs. Some more kingpin stuff, because we could change our hub height using all this stuff. We got some little tiny grub screws in here. We've got some adjustment plates for our C hubs. Got adjustment plates that go inside here. So we're going to set all this stuff aside. Make sure it's all organized so we can get to everything a little bit faster, a little bit easier. And like I said, I'll step through and I'll walk y'all through how to get these things set up correctly, because it's going to be a little tricky. Alright, so before I get started, I want to make sure I got my lubricants ready. I've got my black grease here, and I've got my anti-wear grease here. I'll go ahead and get that opened up. Alright, got my thread locker ready. Let's get started. What we're going to do is we're going to build our bones first, our CVDs. So we're going to build this right here. And it tells you to use grease when you're putting this thing together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a light coating of just a film of my anti-wear grease on here. And I'm not going to use the black grease on this. Matter of fact, I don't think we're going to use black grease on anything on this. I'm just going to use the anti-wear grease. I believe it's a lithium-based grease, and it works a little bit better than that black grease overall long term. So, got our first bone, got our second bone, put them over here on this side. We got our two barrels with the holes through them. And then we got our CVD pins. And then we got our hubs. And then we should be one, two, let's see here, are those the large grub screws? Yeah, those are probably the large grub screws. These two here, two large grub screws. That's what we use to set the pin inside when we put the the hexes on the outside. So, because I'm going to a 6mm hub, there again, Mayako optional parts. You can buy them from Mayako, you can buy them from AMA. These are the 6mm hexes. And I'm going to keep the standard hexes aside. They'll go in my box. They'll be an emergency part. These are one of the more worn items that I have. I mean, these things go through a lot of damage because all that's holding it on is the pin that goes through it. Over time, what will happen is the pin will wear the aluminum out, and you end up having to replace them. So keep a spare set in here in case I have one of these pop apart during a race day. I could just do a quick swap out. You can also keep an extra set of the 6mm in if you want to run the 6mm. Keep an extra set in your box just in case you need them in a heated situation. Alright, so I'm going to take these barrels here, get a little bit of grease on my finger. I'm just going to work it on there. I'm going to take my dog bone, which has a round hole inside of it, and I'm going to slide the barrel through until it's flush on either side. I'm just going to rub the grease around just a little bit. I don't want a whole bunch of excess grease on the outside because that gives something for dirt to stick to. Don't want a lot of dirt stuck in these things because it is metal on metal and it will grind it away. So next thing is we're going to take our end here. There's 4 holes in it like a cross. So if we take our dog bone with the slot facing straight up, the hole facing straight up in the barrel, we take this and we put this straight in there. The hole should line up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but you should be able to see straight through. We're going to take one of our pins here. We're going to put it in the hole, reseat a light. Everything lines up, and it just pushes in. See that on camera right there. You see the head of the pin right there, and it'll be flush on either side. Same thing on that side. See, nice and flush. So when you set it down, make sure you set it down where that pin is horizontal. That way it doesn't slide out when you go to pick it up. So next time we handle these, we're going to be careful. We want to make sure that they're horizontal, they don't fall out, because if you don't realize they fell out, you're going to be in a pickle once it's all put together and don't have any forward drive because it did that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and grease this other side. Stick it in there. I've done a lot of these, so I'm fairly proficient at it. So I'm just going to jam them right together without explaining everything I'm doing because there's no sense in repeating myself. Alright, there again. We'll make sure that we set these to where they're good. Alright, so now I've got both of my CVDs installed. Or not installed, assembled. So, next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our hub here, and we're going to assemble these. So, on these, you'll see one says 1L and one says 1R stamped in the top. That's where your Ackerman plates are going to mount. They're going to mount where you see those letters at, those letters and numbers. So we got our Ackerman plates here. they have a dot marked on the top of it. The dot goes up. So if I take my plate, the one pictured is the 1R. We got the dot facing up. I'll go in here like so. Then we're going to take 2 of our button head screws here. I'm going to do it while I got it, before I put it on the wrench and put it in. I'm going to get a little bit of thread locker, just a tad, on the threads of these screws. Just at the tip. Don't have to saturate them. You just need enough to where it holds the threads together. So we're going to take our 2mm. I'll go ahead and get the first one on the driver. Alright, we're going to find a threaded hole inside there. We're just going to get a couple turns on it to get it started in the threads. We're going to take the other one, we're going to get it on the driver. Then we're going to get it in the other hole. Make sure we got the thread and hole lined up. Alright, so now we're going to run these all the way in, snug. Snug. And now I'm going to crank down on these suckers pretty good. Rah! Get a or a on them things. However tight you want to get it. Just don't go so far to where you strip it out. Alright, we got that one done. Let's go ahead and knock this other one out. There's my Ackerman plate. There's one screw. There's 2 screws. Let's go ahead and get the thread locker on. Just going to kind of rush through it because it's the same as the other side, so no need for a bunch of explanation. Go a little bit quicker this way. Remember, dot goes up. One. And we got the second one. Snug and snug, and then give them the beans. All right. Now we got our left and our right put together. So there again, we got a dot on top. Make sure that the Ackerman arm is pointing the same direction as your rounded piece on top. Like so. And that is your left and your right. Like so. Alright, so next we're going to start assembling the bearing and the crush washer and these spacers while we're putting everything together. Fun. So what we're going to do to make things easy, we're going to take these large bearings, the big bearings. We're going to pick up our CVDs, going to still make sure our pins are in place. We're going to take these large bearings, we're going to slide them on and put them all the way to the flange. You don't have to be quite as careful after you do that because the pins won't come out once you do that. Do the same thing to the other side. All the way on there. Okay, so now that's going to hold the pins into place. And now we get to start doing some fun stuff. So we've got these red rings. They're going to go on next. They look like red wedding bands that are a little bit smaller. After you do that, we're going to take these crush washers, these red crush washers. We're going to put it in. Female side's going to go towards the CVD. The male side is going to face the end of the CVD. We're going to take this bad boy like this. See if I can get a good angle here. Just like so. We're going to push all the way up in, make sure it goes inside that ring. And it's going to go all the way in like so. We've got our ring on the outside, it's flopping around in there. And we've got our crush washer all the way down in there. Okay, do the same thing to the other side. Alright, so we got both of them put together up to this point. Now, this is where we have to pay attention to where the shims are at. So, it says here, first assemble without the shims. After tightening the grub screw, which is a scrub screw here that tightens into the hex against this pin here, there's actually a slot. This is slotted a little bit. So when you tighten it up, it'll kind of pull all the stuff together. So it wants us to go without any shims in the beginning to make sure that we don't bind up when we tighten this grub screw. If we bind up, we have to add shims in. We have to pay special attention to this, because if this is not put together correctly, it will bind and it'll cause your wheels to lock up, especially after it goes a little bit and starts warming up. The wheel will seize up in the middle of a race and you'll be doing donuts and you don't know why. So it says if there's axial movement, add a shim at the indicated location inside the knuckle behind the bearing, behind this bearing here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the smaller bearing and I'm going to set them inside these hubs. If I can get them to square up and go in there nice and easy, it'd be good. See if the other one's a little bit easier. The tolerances are so tight on these things. There it goes. They aren't perfectly square, they don't want to go in. And if possible, you don't want to bang on these things, because if you damage the bearing, it'll cause you all sorts of issues also. Premature wear on the bearings, cause the bearings to heat up, you know, all sorts of negative stuff you don't want. It's not going down really easy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little baby pair of channel locks here. I'm going to grab it on the outside edge. I'm just going to squeeze a little bit. Don't want to squeeze the inner chase, and you don't want to squeeze the rubber. Alright, once I tighten it up, this should pull together. Alright, so we're going to do it without the shims first. We're going to take our CVD. We'll go into the back side, line up the holes, we'll line up the shaft into the bearing. We'll kind of work it into place here. There it goes. There it goes. Now, Once we get into that part, we're going to have to work the bearing into the backside. Nice tight fit. Rah. And the bearing is going to go in there a little bit further than what you expect it to. Okay, when you're done, you should have your hole in your hub. You can see it right there. Should be outside that bearing a little bit. Probably about 1 millimeter. Once you do that, you're going to take your hex. You're going to line it up with that hole on top. Put it in. And then we're going to take our hex pins, the longer pins. We're going to put it through the hole. We're going to sit it down to where it's horizontal. We're going to take our large grub screw, which I believe is a 2.5. Yes, it is. We're going to put some thread locker on this bad boy. As always, don't gum it up. Just fill the threads up a little bit near the tip, away from where your driver is. Alright, put that down through the middle. We're going to snug it up a little bit by hand. If you've got a wrench that's the right size, which that wrench doesn't get big enough, so I'm going to use my little baby channel lock, so I'm just going to be careful not to damage it. Make sure that it's going to be nice and square on there. And I'm going to hold it across where the pins are. And if you got a wrench, you want to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you're holding where the pins are at. That way the pins aren't sticking out from the hex, because when you go to put your tires on, that's going to cause problems. So we're going to get in there, crank it down a little bit, and then we're going to give it a real good, nice strong Not a lot. If you give it too much, you can run a risk of actually breaking the pin inside there. I haven't had that happen myself, but I know somebody who it has. Alright, now, that's nice and smooth, nice and snug. It's not binding. I don't hear any dragging. So we're not going to require a shim on this one. So we shall go to the next one. We got this thing here. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to work it in there. Get it through the outer bearing. Make sure that the ring lines up in the back. Same diameter as the bearing back there, so we just need to make sure that it goes in. Just kind of press it into place. Come on, buddy, you can go. Whoa. If you have a problem with that, you can do the same thing I did earlier. Take a small pair of channel locks, grab it on the edges, just kind of coax it in just a little bit. If it's too hard to put in, do not put it in. Should not require much pressure at all, because like I said, it's just the tolerances. The tolerances are pretty tight in there. Oh, it went right in. I just had a little tight spot trying to get started. Alright, we'll make sure that it's fully in. Again, slot's about a 1 millimeter up. Should see about 1 millimeter of that shaft behind it. We're going to take our other 6 millimeter hex. We're going to slide it on there. Take other hex pin. Slide that sucker in there, and then we're going to set it down level. Take our other large grub screw, wherever it's at. It's in there somewhere. Right here. Rolled it out the way with my finger and didn't see it. Alright, a little bit of thread locker. We'll hold the pin in either side. We're going to run this thing in till it bottoms. And the same thing, if you got a wrench, make sure it's on the outsides of the pins, holds it flush. Using channel locks, just be careful, don't squeeze on it. You just want to hold it. And then we're going to give it a nice Alright, now let's see if we need shims on this one. Okay, so this one is a little tight. Not 100% sure if that bearing is fully seated in the back, so I'm going to check that before I take it apart and put spacers in there. Still tight, so I'm going to need to go in and I'm going to need to put a shim in this one. And that's why you got to pay attention to this step when you're putting it together. Because as bound as that is, it would damage the bearing or lock that wheel up. Okay, so you don't have to take the grub screw back out to do this. Just loosen it. And then pin normally falls out. If not, you could take like a 1.5 and push it out. We're going to take this back off. We're going to push our CVD back out. Let's set that aside. And then we're going to try to get that outer bearing out of there without damaging anything. Work from one side to the other, just kind of coax it out of there. That one I had to push in there, it may be easier if I get the outer one out. We'll see. Alright, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop the video, I'll get this thing out of here. Y'all need to sit here and watch me fight with this thing. Just make the video longer. I'll be right back. Okay, as soon as I hit pause, it got right out of there. Okay, so let me show you guys what I did in case y'all run into this. Make your life a little bit easier. So I've got my 7mm hex driver here, right? So what I did was I went in the back inside of the large bearing up against the crush washer. I took my handy dandy shop pliers here. I set this over the handle to where it's nice and open. This is aluminum, so it's not going to hurt anything. Put this inside, up against the crush washer, and I tap the back side of it, and the outer bearing popped right out. Nice and easy. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to put this crush washer with the flange side facing out. We're going to put that back in the hole right there up against the large bearing in the back. Go ahead and set that down. Now we're going to take our shims here, which is our smaller shims. There's small shims and large shims. We're going to take our small shim and we're going to set it aside right here. We're going to take our CVD. Easy way to do it, face it straight up. Put it through the inner bearing, through the crush washer. Make sure your pin's in it now, and push it all the way up. Now we want to make sure that crush washer goes back down all the way into place. Kind of hard to line up. It fits in there kind of perfect. All right, now that's in there. Now we're going to take one of these shims. We're going to take a single shim. We're going to slide that down over the shaft. All the way down to the crush washer. You can see the silver sitting on top of the red. Then we're going to take our outer bearing. We're going to slide it down on there. And then we're going to coax it into place. Which, after I put it in and taken it out, it should be a lot easier to go in there. Yep, got the bottom all the way out, so I'm going to use my pliers. I'm just going to coax it back into place. That's as far as it wants to go. Now I do have enough sticking out the side to where I can get my pin and my stuff back together here. So I'll line it up. Looks like my pinhole may be lined up. We shall see. If not, I'll have to work that bearing back a little bit. Nope. I'm going to have to work that bearing back a little bit. So let's do that again. Oh, there was a little pop. A little pop. Remember, work it from side to side. You can get 3 or 4 points where you can squeeze on it, you're good. Now what I'm doing is the back of the pliers, I'm actually putting it on the rim of the metal, the steel of the CVD, instead of on the aluminum, so I don't score the aluminum up. Just using the metal, and I'm pushing on the stainless of the outer ring of the bearing. So we'll do this again. Yeah, it looks like it lined up real good this time. We'll put the pin through. Goes all the way through. I'm gonna hand snug that there. I'm gonna grab it by the sides of the hex with the pin again, and then we're gonna come in and we're going to crank it down again. All right, let's see if our spacers worked. Much better. Much, much better. Much, much better. All right, so let me test it side to side. That one's still a little more snug, so we're going to add a second. We're going to do a second one in there. We're going to do another spacer. After looking at the other one, it may even be that outer bearing's not seated completely. Let me try to get that in a little bit further. Yeah, looks like that is about the thickness of one of them spacers out. So let me squeeze some more. May just be in the machining. It may just not be seated. May not be allowing that bearing to seat in there, which I don't think it is. So we're going to put one more in there. Let me slide the CVD back out, and I'll keep you all on camera for this time. We're going to take our pliers here, our shock pliers. We're going to take this driver, we're going to set it inside of here, balance it out, and then just was actually getting the bearing caught on the pliers. That's why it wouldn't pop out. Pop, pop, pop. Popped it right out that time. Feel it working its way out. Alright, so put our crush washer back in there. Take the CVD. We'll put it back in there. Get that all the way up in there. I'm afraid I'm going to lose that pin. There we go. Now we're going to get the crush washer back on there. I hit that with that wrench, so it kind of deformed the opening just a hair. So I'm just going to tap it, tap it, tap it. Nice and easy. Take my body reamer. Where'd it go? I'm going to get that rough spot off the edge there where I dinged it just a little bit when I was hitting it with the wrench. See if that got enough of it off of there. Just trying. Alright, I'm gonna pause the video, I'll get it straight and then we'll start again. Okay, guys, I got it and I explained what I did. Basically same thing you saw. I took my body reamer, held the outside gently with a pair of small pair of channel locks, and just cleaned a little rough spot off the edge where I had hit it with the hex. No big deal. It all fits in there kind of snug and tight anyhow. You just got to make sure the tolerances are so tight. Alright, so we got that down in there. We're going to get 2 shims in there this time. Almost like how the picture shows on the computer. Alright, then we're going to take this outer bearing and we're going to push it back in there again. Okay. And work this outer bearing, the outer bearing back into place again. I think. Yep. Squeeze. Squeeze. Use these, make sure I seat it all the way down. Alright, looks like that's it. Alright, let's do this one last time. 6mm hex on the outside, put the pin in it. 2.5, snug it down. We're going to take our channel locks or wrench, hold it at the ends of the pins, snug that down pretty good. Alright, now that's the ticket. That's the ticket. Spins just as easy as the other side. That's what we're looking for. I said manufacturing tolerances. Every car manufacturer has a thing with manufacturing tolerances. So any brand car you put together, when you're putting together stuff that's requiring crushed areas between bearings, you're putting your diffs together, all that stuff, and they show you shims in the instructions, that doesn't pay attention and make sure they're not telling you that you have to put them in. It may just be some spacing, and they'll tell you that you may need them. And in our case, we needed them on one side, not the other. Okie dokie. Now, we've got those put together. We're going to go on to our next piece of instruction. So, this is where we set our heights for our hubs. You'll pay attention, gray and white section here tell you your knuckle position, which shims to use to get the position you're looking for, right? And it tells you which kingpins to use. Notice these kingpins are different. One has a notch in it. One has a slot in it. The slot one is your bottom one. That's where your hinge pin goes through. The top one that has the notch in it, we put that in, and then it's got a set screw that goes inside to hold it into place so it doesn't come up. Pretty neat setup. Now, these shims here are these red shims that you see right here. So, I want to run, matter of fact, we'll grab my other car. We'll see what I'm running on the other car. Right now, I am running, I believe, 2 shims on the bottom, no shims on the top. So I'm running mine in the upper position. So, put our 2 arms here. So if we look at the picture, the C-hub like this, it's the same one that's showing in the picture, and it's showing our Ackerman arm facing away, right? So this will go to this one, right? No. Yes, that'll go to that one, and this one will go to this one. That's your left and your right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take these Whoa, there's one more of these little red doohickeys running around here somewhere. Where's that? Where's that? It's inside the hex right there. Cool. Was hiding. I'm glad I didn't throw those things off to the side. Okay, so we're going to put 2 spacers on the bottom, no spacers on the top. And then we're going to use our kingpins here and here. The top kingpins are going to be our short kingpins because we're not putting any spacers on top. So we're going to take these longer upper kingpins and we're going to put them aside. So if we're running knuckle position up, which is going to be top, we're going to have a short on the top, long on the bottom. So we're going to take our lower kingpins, we're going to find our long ones. It's 2 longs, 2 shorts. We're going to take our short ones, we're going to move them aside, and we're going to use our long ones on the bottom. So because I am putting the spacers on the bottom, we're going to start with the bottom. So I'm going to take my kingpin. I'm coming through the bottom. I'm going to line my slot up. Slot in the side of that. I'm going to line it up with the hinge pin hole in the side. I'm going to start to push it in there. It's at an angle now. It's not going to go straight in. It is at an angle. That's your kingpin inclination. These are your kingpins, and that's your KPI. There's your kingpin inclination that y'all are hearing the KPI a lot when y'all hear about the cars nowadays. You used to not hear about KPI too awfully much. Heard about raising and lowering, but you never heard too much about KPI. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hold this pin flush with the top of the washer. Then I'm going to take my hub here and put the dog bone through the hole. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of get this into place, find the hole, and I push the kingpin up through the spacers into the bottom of the hub. Right? So, now that I have done that, pay attention because there's a grub screw hole in the bottom. We're not going to put that in until we put the hinge pin in, right? Because that's going to lock the hinge pin onto this. And then we also have a screw hole here that's going to lock the hinge pin onto the hub. So this part will not rotate. It'll rotate on the outside where we want it to. It'll rotate in the arms. Okay, so now we're going to take our short kingpin, holding the bottom of my finger so it don't come sliding out. We're going to take our little notch kingpin, and that's going to go in the top. We're going to feel for it. Or you just turn it sideways and the kingpin stays in like I just did there. That works too. It's a matter of finding the hole in it, popping in there. See if it's lining up. Pretty darn close. I'll wiggle it around and get it to drop in the notch. Doesn't look like it's going all the way through to it. Stuck in the hole. So I'll tap on it a little bit, see if maybe there's a little ridge. Yep, there's a little ridge in that hole, so we'll tap, tap, tap. Looks like it's contacting now. Now I just gotta find that hole there. It feels like it's it, and then I'll finish tapping that into place. Alright, went all the way in. Okay, so that'll go all the way down until it's touching. See that? So, not letting the bottom kingpin slide out. I got my finger on it so it doesn't. That's what we're going to look like. 2 red spacers on bottom, none on top. Upper kingpin in place, lower kingpins being held in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down on the tabletop to where nothing's going to come apart. Now I've got to get a grub screw in this top hole. So it's going to be the larger of the grub screws that we've got left over. And look at that. Is that going to be a... It's going to be a 2. Get my 2mm here.
Motion detected.
2mm. We're going to get some handy dandy blue Loctite on there because we are going metal to metal. And we're going to run this in. And then we're going to snug her down pretty good. About 1.5 is good for that. I'm going to wipe the excess blue Loctite off of that. So now, upper kingpin is in place. swivels pretty good. Now keep in mind all these spacers and everything are new, so that it's going to be a little snug like when we did the arms, but it's not going to be locked up and it's not going to feel abnormal. Okay, so we're going to set that aside like that. And then sounds like my wife's on, so I'm going to go and pause this. I'm going to put the other side together and then we'll move along to the next step. Okay, well my wife's not home, so I did do a little bit of got a little advanced here. So what I did was I went ahead and I put a grub screw in here, a little bit of Loctite on it, did not tighten it up. And I also put my little tiny grub screw inside here, a little bit, didn't tighten it up. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one so you guys can see me do it. Okay, so it's going to be 2 millimeter. Already got Loctite on it, so I don't have to worry about it. We're going to get it in this hole here. Just going to get a couple of turns on it. We're not going to tighten it up. So we're getting a little tiny grub screw. This is going to be a 1.5. On driver, we're going to get a little dab of Loctite on there. Just a little dab. We're going to get that one started too. I'm not going to tighten it up, just going to get it started. Alright, so at this point, guys, we pretty much have our hubs assembled. Make sure that's all the way in here. Yes, it is. Okay. Pretty much have our hubs assembled. So these inserts here, I'm not going to put them in until we actually mount them up, because these lower kingpins will just slide right out. Well, we could try it. So do this. These are inserts. I run my links high, so I'm just going to pop it into where the holes are at the top part of there. So I don't want to risk dropping that kingpin out. It's a pain in the butt if it falls out and you got to put it back in. It just slides right out of there. All right, same thing on the other side. You're going to go towards the top of the C-hub. Okay. Next up. All right. Now we get to put this onto the front of the car. We're getting really close to ending the front end assembly. This is a really long video. It looks like it's going to be 3 hours by the time we're done at least. All right, so here's our front end again. For you guys, it looks like this right here. We got our top plate here. Front of the diff is here. Right? So what I'm going to do, make sure I got everything right. I'm going to rotate it around so I can see it as it looks on the screen. This is the angle for me at the screen. Top plate here, front of the diff here. So I'm going to pick this up, finger covering that lower kingpin. I'm going to rotate this around, and this is the left side. So the left side is going to go, lift that camber link up, hanging down the way. I'm going to get the dog bone. Get the dog bone in the cup right there. Make sure it's seated in the cup. I'm going to rotate this around, and I know I'm covering the camera right now, guys. Just bear with me. And I'm going to get the hub. Don't worry about the dog bone right now. I'm going to get the hub down into the arm. we've got our set screw, or our hinge pin, outer hinge pin, long screws. They're going to go from the front to the back. I'll put it in. Find the hole for it to go through. There it goes, in there. Alright, now, on the kingpin on the bottom, there's a notch in it. That notch needs to line up either on this side or this side. That tells you that the pin hole going through the kingpin is straight. You do that, and that pin will go right on through like a dream. Okay, now, I'm going to put the nut on the back side. We're going to tighten it up. Let me see if that's the right size wrench. Not that one. I'll do this one then. Alright. So, take my adjustable wrench and I'm going to hold the end of that screw, that hinge pin. I'm going to use my hex driver to tighten it up. And just like the inner hinge pins, we're going to run it in until it stops. And just snug it. Just a little bump. Okay, once we do that, we're going to come in and we're going to tighten all our grubs up. We've already got Loctite on them, so we're going to tighten them up. You can see that this one here, it actually tells you to put that in now. Again, snug, snug. You go 1 to 1.5 ounce. And same thing with the one in the bottom kingpin. You're going to run it in until it hits the shaft, and you're going to give it an Once you do that, be nice and smooth. The whole pin is going to rotate inside this arm. Alright. Now we can get the dog bone in the hole. We're going to put this dog bone in this cup right here by hinging the hub. Alright, it's in there. So we've got barrel head screw. So we're going to come down with our hub. I like to run my links on the outside to start, and then if I need to later on, I'll adjust them to a inner hole. So I'm going to put it in the outside hole here. Just like before, I'm going to hold the square with the needle nose, and I'm going to come in with my 2.5 and tighten this bad boy up. There again, I like everything nice and square, so I'm squaring up the square part of this bald nut. Alright, and I'm going to snug it up pretty good. Alright, so we now have one side assembled. Ta-da! Now the arm moves nice and smooth with the weight on it. I said it felt snug when we did it before. A little, just not free. Well, it's free now with the extra weight on it. Note This comes down and then kicks up at the end. Again, I run the outer hole for a little more calm front end. If I need it to be a little more aggressive, I can move it in a notch. So now we got that side put together. I'll go ahead and do the other side. Same thing. We'll come in. I'm not going to worry about, oh, kingpin just slid out. I forgot that bad boy is loose in there. Let's see if it'll slide right back in real easy without having to do a bunch of alignment. All my little spacers walked away. Not a professional car builder. This is only the second one of these I built. I've only taken my front end on the other one off a couple of times, so no. Some of this is a learning. Learn as I go. No, can't be perfect. There we go. All right, it's back together. Now let me get my finger back over this thing. Let me get this screw hole started here. Goes from the front of the disc to the back. Make sure it's not poking out the other side to where it'll hamper me putting everything together. Tell you what, turn it up. I shall put it together with it turned up like that. There we go. Find the hole. You're right there. You got to make sure you got the right angle too, or it won't go in. That's it. I have to get a little tap tap. Yep. That's all I was looking for. Just a little tap tap. Oh, apparently I have my hole in my kingpin lined up. It went all the way through. Beautiful. Alright. Just like the other side. We're going to put the nut on there. We're going to hold the head of the screw, which only has 2 flat sections on it. It's not a hex, so you'll need a wrench or a pair of pliers or something to hold it. Recommend a wrench. We'll take our nut driver here, tighten it up till it stops, and then snug it down. Just like that. Then we're going to tighten up our little grub screws here. Here is the 1.5. So you got a little grease on there, but that's okay. It's got a lot of tight inside there. And then we got our 2. We'll tighten up the one on the outside of the hub. Give that one a nice little unhalf. All right. So we're going to swing that hub out. We're going to put the diff in the cup. We're going to swing this arm out. Outside hole. Going to line it up and tighten it down. Here you go. Okay, now remember where we had to measure our camber rods, right? So we've already know we've got them balanced here and here, right? We set them up to where they're the end of the threads on the rod ends. So now at this point it would be much easier to tighten these up and put these to measurement. Not when you were assembling them. There again, if you want your shit to be straight, this is the way to do it. You can either do it now, or you can wait until you've assembled the car and you're setting your camber and your toe. Be an awesome way to do it. So I'm going to wait until I've got the car assembled. I'm just going to leave it how it is for now. Alright, so guys, when you put this together, remember, this is your steering top plate, right? So when you assembled it, here is your Ackerman plates. Your Ackerman plates are going to be pointing out the same direction as what your steering plate is. Everything's all nice and smooth. Arms are nice and flexible. Freaking awesome. Just going to look it over, make sure I got all my screws and my holes, make sure everything's good before we can move along. Let's see what the next part is in the book. Okay, next we'll be putting the shocks in. Okay, my wife did pull up. I'm going to go eat dinner, and we'll throw the shocks on this bad boy so we can see what the fully assembled front end will look like, because we're almost there. Alright, y'all. Got a full belly now. Wife brought me home some Wendy's. Excuse me. So we're going to move along to the next step here. Boom. Alright, we get to put all the shock assembly together. So we had screws left over from bag A. So let me grab the stuff from baggie A here. Move all my extra bits and pieces out of the way from this. Alright, we're going to dump this out. Okay, we got our shock standoffs here. Should be 4 of them. 2 for the front, 2 for the back. Some of the stuff's going to go back into the bag until we get to that point. Alright, these pieces here, I'm going to have to explain them when I go to put them in. I've got some yellow ones, so these will go away. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for our head screws. Those are going to be for our shock standoffs. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 shock spacers. And then our plastic shock spacer washers. And then we've got our 4 nuts for those. And then these are our lower shock screws. So we're going to start off with these. I'll reach over here and I'm going to grab my yellow bits and pieces that are Mayako aftermarket parts again. Alright, so this set of lower arm shock position inserts are middle. So those put them in the middle position. Now we've got another set here for tuning purposes. These are for outside. So basically what that is where the hole is positioned. So I'm going to start off with the outside ones. I like my lower shocks to be as far out as possible on the arm. So we're going to start with these. Go ahead and open this bad boy up and take 2 out. So most car manufacturers mount the lower end of the shock directly to the arm. What you run into with that is you end up with stripped out screw holes in arms. If you're changing your shocks out, if you're doing your normal maintenance to your shocks, I'm going to take these black ones out of the way so they're not in the way up here. So JQ came up with putting these inserts in the arms. This is what your screw screws into. It actually screws through this and into the arm a little bit, just a little bit. But your screw will wear this out, not wear out the arm. Ingenious idea. You don't have a bunch of holes to weaken the front of the arm up, because you normally got multiple holes on a normal car. This just has a single hole and an insert. It's got a notch in it to where the end of the shock rod goes through. So what we're going to do is I'm going to flip this diff assembly up. And you see these large openings on both arms. That's where these inserts go in. So like I said, I want the hole to the outside. It's got a flange which goes to the outside of the arm. We're going to put it inside. We're going to press it all the way down in there. And we're going to go into the hole up here. And we're going to get the back section of it pressed into the hole in the back side of the arm. So once it's in there, it'll be a little recessed. You can see it on the inside of the arm right there. You're going to do the same thing to the other side. Put it in with the hole facing the outside. Now we got our nice neat little yellow inserts on both sides. Okay. So next thing is we're going to start getting our shocks ready to go on. So here we've got our front shocks for our front diff. I also have yellow shock inserts for the top and washers. Whoa. Got a little zealous with that bag. It just popped right open. Alright. I'm just going to take 2 of each out. Move the other set in the bag, set it aside. So, what I like to do when I do my shocks, when I set them up on my car, I like to have the bleeder screw angled downward. The reason why I do this is in a race situation, dirt gets on there, it will kind of fall out of the screw hole. Don't get as much dirt packed in there. If you wreck, dirt will pack up on the top edge normally, and if that screw hole's up here, it'll pack up with wet clay or dirt or whatever. And you end up wearing out the head of the screw when you try to take it off. You end up in there with a pick or a air hose, and you're trying to clean it out, and it's just a big battle. So you put it on the bottom. It's not going to completely get rid of the situation, but it makes it a lot less. You'll see in the picture that they actually want you to have them facing up. That purpose is so you can bleed your shocks if you need to without removing them from the car. I find that if I'm going to bleed my shocks, I'm going to remove them from the car anyhow. So why not just have the screw on the bottom? I don't want to bleed my shocks while they're on the car. It just doesn't seem to serve purpose for me. It's going to be whichever you want, but this is how I do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the shock on this side. Take my yellow shock insert, bleeder hole down. I'm going to come from the back side, and I'm going to insert this yellow sleeve inside, like so. Right? Shock on this side, it's going to be the same way. Put the bleeder screw down, and take my insert, and come up from the back side. I'm going to put it there. That way when it mounts, it'll be like so. Bleeder screw down, the main part of the insert we want up against the shock standoff when we install it. So let's go ahead and get our standoffs put on. Large barrel head screw. I'm going to start off in the middle hole for the front, and these are threaded, so I'm going to run my shock stand off, keep going, and just before it makes contact, there's flat sections on here that fit in the slot that'll hold this standoff into the front tower, just like so. It fits in that little slot right there. It'll hold it almost like a wrench holding a nut. You just put a little bit of pressure on it, and then you come in with your 2.5 millimeter. You can finish running that screw in. And you can put a good old on that. You put a good old 2 on that. Alright, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Come into the middle hole here. Take that shock stand off, put it in there. And this side I push the shock stand off into the slot, and I'm turning the screw by hand. I said there's different ways you can do this stuff. Just whatever's the most comfortable for you, whichever you feel is the best way to do it. Neither way is the right way, neither way is the wrong way. Still get the same accomplishment at the end. Neither way is really easier than the other. And we're gonna okay, we got the 2 on that one. Alright, now that's on there. So we're going to take, and I'm going to take the bottom of the shock, and I'm going to line the flat section with this flat section. That way when I put it on there, it'll go into the arm a little bit easier. So the way I like to do this is, I like to just set the bottom of the shock in the slot, bring the top over, squeeze the shock down a little bit, and slide it on the standoff like so. So the bottom's just in the slot. It's not even hooked up to nothing yet. The top is not screwed down yet. It's just slid over the shock standoff that we just tightened up. So we're going to take one of our washers. We're going to put it over the outside like so. We're going to take one of our nuts. We'll start it by hand. Get it started on there like so. And find the right size wrench there. Okay, got the right size driver here. That is a 5.5. And we're going to tighten this up all the way. It's going to stop, and then you're going to give it one more Alright, so top of that shock is on there. So before I go trying to put lower screws in, I'm going to go ahead and take this other shock. I'm going to do the same thing. Line up the flats. Put the lower part of the shock in the arm. Squeeze the body of the shock down. Line up the hole. Slide it on there like so. Take our washer. Put our washer on. With the yellow, you can see a lot better on there than the black one, so I'm kind of glad that I put the yellow ones on here so you can see it on camera. We're going to take a nut. We'll put the nut on here also. We're going to take our driver. tighten it up. It kind of self-centers, kind of presses onto there. And then we're going to do a nice good front. Alright, now, we're going to pay attention because this is something that's very important if you don't want your shocks to come unscrewed on the track. We have a silver reverse thread screw on the right side of the car. We've got a standard black screw. Let me see here. Yeah, the right side of the car. And then we got a black screw on the left side. So I'm going to turn this around so I can see what I'm doing. Rotate it. I'll flip it up so it'll be a little bit easier for you guys to see. So left side of the car gets a black screw. Silver screw, reverse threads goes on the other side. Screws slide into the insert. Allows you to line up the swivel ball inside there and get the screw into place, like so. When both sides went on. So, just like before, with our power driver, this side's going to be normal, righty-tighty. Run it in until it almost makes contact. Now I'm going to reverse my drill. And this side is lefty-tighty. Alright. Now I'm going to come back in with my 2mm and I'm going to hand tighten it. It's pretty snug. It's going through plastic into plastic. These things really won't loosen up. That's right, that one's backwards. So lefty-tighty that one. You don't have to go really tight with that stuff. Just snug it down pretty good. Alright guys, at this point, we've got our front diff assembled with shocks. Oh yeah, nice and buttery. Alright, let's see what we got going on. Next step in the book, and then we'll see if we're going to continue on with this video or not. Suggested you start with shocks mounted in the middle hole in the tower, which we did. Suggested to start with the outer hole on the outer link position on the top. Yep, look at that. We already did that, didn't we? And then they tell you about the different shock positions here. Now, we went to the outside. It tells you to use the long ball ends with the 2 or 3 dot insert, which we did. We used the long shock ends, outside hole. So what that'll do is whenever this thing goes full droop, it's not going to rip the end off of the shock shaft. It allows there to be an extra bit of threads there. It won't allow the shock to extend to the point to where it's ripping the plastic off. Those threads are very fine, and it'll pull the center right out of that plastic. So we did good, guys. We did good. Alright, let's see what the next page says. Okay, now it's saying we're going to do the rear end. So what I'll do is I'll stop this video, and then we'll start putting the back end together. Again, guys, this is the front end. Steering's nice and smooth, both sides. Suspension's nice and butter. No binding. We turn this hex on this side, it turns the hex on this side. See all the diff stuff moving? That's how it should be. Alright, so I'm going to set this down. We'll get started with the rear end in the next video. So while we're doing that tonight, I'm going to upload this video. So see you in the next. we're halfway done with the chassis stuff. Okay.